Leave me so
The path that I took was not one that was planned as opposed to taking advantage of circumstances as they arose. Yet trying to examine my life's past, I've never really fully understood some of the things that have happened in my career. I started out as a young 18-year-old enlisting in the United States Navy. I then discovered that blacks were being given an opportunity to fly in the United States Navy, and I did that by these stories that came out about the first black naval aviator, Jesse Brown, shot down, killed in Korea. And it made national news because his wingman crash-landed his aircraft beside Jesse's to try and extricate him from the cockpit. Jesse was trapped. Unable to accomplish that, Jesse died in the cockpit. His wingman subsequently received the Medal of Honor, Thomas Hudner. When I read that story, I thought, okay, well, let me see if I could have a shot at flying in the Navy. But when I arrived in flight school, I discovered there was another black cadet, and I say another because at that time there was very, very few blacks who were in the program. The one gentleman who was ahead of me, Dave Campbell, had been a Marine, and Dave had opted to try and be the first black Marine aviator. Dave didn't make it through the program, but he had convinced B to at least try. So I opted to apply.
So, what do Mia Khalifa, Rihanna, and Greta Thunberg have in common?
What is it?
Indian farmers. They all pledged their support of the farmers' protests in India, but some in India aren't too happy about it. Yes, because when a singer, a former porn star, and a child activist pose a threat to your cause, the best way to demonstrate moral high ground is to burn their effigies. But Greta went a step further and tweeted about something called the Indian Farmers Toolkit, which is kinda problematic.
How dare you!
Quick intro. India's farmers are protesting against laws that remove
Bitcoin got a jolt of confidence from Tesla. The electric car maker said it invested $1.5 billion in the electronic currency, driving it up more than 15% to a record high. Tesla also said it expects its customers will be able to use Bitcoin to buy its cars and other products in the near future. Analysts say the company's investment could prove to be a game changer for Bitcoin. While central banks have been skeptical of digital currencies, some big financial institutions like BlackRock and PayPal support them. Bitcoin, which has set new record highs in recent months, has had a roller coaster ride over the past decade. But Tesla CEO Elon Musk has endorsed Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in the past. Just last week, he said Bitcoin was on the verge of being more widely accepted among investors. In December, he asked if it was possible to do large transactions with it.
It does look like reinfection is possible. I don't think we fully understand why that is and why immunity has not developed after natural infection. It does look like it's absolutely a minority of people. It does look like we induce good antibodies in the vast majority of people who get infected, but not all.
There is already a clear description of one case of infection. There are many anecdotal cases of infection, but we have not yet been able to define how frequent this is happening.
Previous infection does not give you a free pass that you're not going to get infected. Previous infection does not give you a free pass that you're not going to get infected again. The rate of reinfection is considerably more than an anecdotal occurrence.
Our vaccine-induced immunity, at least where we have the most data from the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, really consistently induce very high levels of antibody. So I do think there's evidence, at least for those two vaccines, of inducing perhaps better immunity than natural infection, at least at the population level.
we are finalizing a resolution that's been agreed to by all parties. The House managers, the former President's counsel, Leader McConnell, and I, that will ensure a fair, honest, bipartisan Senate impeachment trial of Donald Trump. We'll be releasing more of the details today, but I'm proud to report each side will have ample time to make arguments. If the managers decide they want witnesses, there'll be a vote on that. That's what they requested. They weren't sure they wanted witnesses. They wanted to preserve the option. That's just what we do. And the trial will accommodate a request from one of the Trump counsel not to have it on the Jewish Sabbath, but it will resume on Sunday afternoon. And most importantly, it's going to ensure a fair Senate impeachment, allowing for truth and accountability. Truth and accountability are essential. Some people say, oh, let this go away. Oh, no. When something as horrible, as dastardly that happened on January 6th occurs, you cannot sweep it under the rug. You must have all the truth come out, and then the accountability once the truth comes out. That's what we aim to do. With this trial.
We need not have a conflict, but there's going to be an extreme competition. And I'm not going to do it the way that he knows this, because he's been sending signals as well. Then I'm not going to do it the way Trump did. We're going to focus on international rules of the road.
Really? President Biden says he's prepared for competition with China as he sets out to reverse more of Donald Trump's policies. Here to react, Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. So, Senator, he's not going to do the way Trump did it, but he hasn't even called him yet. The first visitor that President Trump had at Mar-a-Lago was the president of China. So what messages are they supposed to get in China? Because they have not slowed up at all.
Good morning, Brian. No, they haven't. I'm glad to see Joe Biden singing a different tune now. You know, the campaign, he said the Chinese leadership weren't bad folks and that they weren't our competitors. Of course, they're our most dangerous and long-term strategic competitor. But to simply rebuke President Trump for being the first president in 2 generations to stand up to the Chinese Communist Party and to say he's going to do it differently without specifying how he's going to do it differently is not a show of strength. Look, it was a year ago this week that I started demanding investigations into the labs in Wuhan and whether they could have been the source for the plague that China unleashed on the world. You know, the media at the time hyperventilated that I was spouting conspiracy theories. Now they're admitting it's plausible and it needs to be investigated. Meanwhile, a year later, we're still dealing with the fallout here in America. Our schools are closed and kids are not getting educated in no small part because of Chinese communist malevolence and negligence.
So, Senator, my follow-up question is going to be, what action would you like to see from President Biden to show how tough he is going to be on China? Would that be it? Demand answers and access to the Wuhan lab, as in right away?
That would be one very simple thing to do. I mean, even his friends in the liberal media are demanding that we get access to those labs in Wuhan, that China began to come clean about what happened there a year ago. There are other things, of course, he can do, like continue the arms sales that we accelerated to Taiwan.
This is VOA News here. Myanmar's military government has imposed a curfew and bans on gatherings of more than 5 people in the country's 2 biggest cities. The ban and curfew come as protests against its military coup show no sign of slowing down. Rallies and gatherings of more than 5 people are banned, and an 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew is now imposed. The measures are effective until further notice. After 3 consecutive days of demonstrations, police have warned protesters to disperse or face force in order to stop the rallies against the coup. Protesters are also speaking out against the arrest of civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi, whose National League for Democracy won the November election. Former President Donald Trump's lawyers are blasting the impeachment case against him as an act of political theater by Democrats. In a brief filed Monday on the eve of the U.S. Senate impeachment trial, lawyers for the former president attacked the case on multiple grounds. They say it is unconstitutional and must be dismissed. President Trump's historic second impeachment trial is set to start Tuesday with a debate and vote on whether it's even constitutional to prosecute the former president now that he's no longer in office. Meanwhile, Democrats filed their own document Monday, asserting that the former president had betrayed the American people and that there is no valid excuse or defense. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced Monday the United States will return to the UN Human Rights Council as an observer. Blinken said in a statement the move is part of the Biden administration's recommitment to a foreign policy centered on democracy. This is VOA News. Rescuers in northern India are working to save more than 36 power plant workers trapped in a tunnel. The rescue operation comes after part of a Himalayan glacier broke off and sent a wall of water and debris rushing down a mountain. More than 2,000 members of the military, paramilitary groups, and police have been taking part in search and rescue operations in the northern state of Uttarakhand after Sunday's disaster. The disaster has killed at least 26 people, left 165 others missing, and damaged dams and homes downstream. Officials say the focus now is on saving 37 workers stuck inside the tunnel at one of the affected hydropower plants. South Africa suspended its vaccination campaign against COVID-19 Sunday. This comes after a new study revealed the AstraZeneca vaccine is less effective against a variant of the virus found in the country. The World Health Organization is holding a meeting Monday about the latest development in South Africa. The news was a blow to South Africa, which has seen more than 46,000 people die from the virus. U.S. Democrats are hoping to get President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion relief package through Congress before current unemployment benefits run out in mid-March. AP Washington correspondent Julie Walker reports.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said she hopes to approve the specific budget details over the next 2 weeks. And according to information obtained by the Associated Press, House Democrats plan to propose boosting the child tax credit now at a maximum of $2,000 to as much as $3,600 per child. The proposal will be part of the COVID relief bill they are writing that is expected to largely follow Biden's plan. Republicans say the $1.9 trillion package is too big. Biden argues it's needed to avoid the mistakes made when the Obama administration was unable to get increased support through Congress, resulting in a long, slow recovery following the financial crisis. I'm Julie Walker.
Anti-Kremlin protesters freed from detention in Russia say they are ready to keep demonstrating and have lost their fear of the authorities. Police detained more than 11,000 people during 3 unsanctioned protests over the past weeks, calling for the release of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny, jailed for parole violations he denies. Navalny allies have put protests on hold for now until warmer weather and say they are focused on trying to achieve a breakthrough at a parliamentary election in the fall. Some of those detained for taking part in the protests said they were ready to take to the streets again when the time is right. Via remote, I'm Liz Palka, VOA News.
Support for NPR and the following message come from Feather.
The defense's arguments. NPR's Domenico Montanaro reports on how the prosecution plans to proceed this week.
We know that the House impeachment managers on the Democratic side are trying to push a shortened case, one heavy on video and emotional pleas from recalling the events of January 6th to try to make it almost try the president before the public to convince them rather than just the senators.
NPR's Domenico Montanaro. The insurrection staged by pro-Trump extremists over a month ago resulted in multiple deaths, including that of a U.S. Capitol Police officer. The first sitting member of Congress has died after he was diagnosed with COVID-19. NPR's Claudia Grisales reports Texas Republican Ron Wright tested positive for the virus more than 2 weeks ago.
Congressman Ron Wright had reportedly gone into quarantine on Friday, January 15, after being in contact with someone who had the coronavirus. The following week, Wright tested positive and said he was experiencing minor symptoms but would continue to work for his constituents. He was admitted to Baylor Hospital in Dallas with COVID-19 2 weeks ago. His family notes that Wright also battled cancer for the last several years but still maintained his quick wit and optimism. They say his wife, Susan Wright, was by his side when he passed, quote, peacefully. Claudia Grisales, NPR News, Washington.
Amazon workers in Alabama will begin voting today to decide whether to unionize. Mary Scott Hodgen from member station WBHM reports the warehouse near Birmingham is on track to becoming the first Amazon facility in the U.S. to unionize.
Roughly 6,000 employees at the Amazon